In this video, we are going to deploy a Node.js and React application to AWS Lightsail. Our app has a server written in Node.js with Express and a single-page application client written in React. You can replace React with other framework. The process will be more or less the same. The advantage with using AWS Lightsail is that it's a pretty straightforward product and also very affordable. The cheapest pods start at $3.50 and they include a static IP and also the tooling we can use to generate free SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. We will use one single Lightsail pod to deploy both the server and the client. They will be deployed to different subdomains, and we will use Virtualhosts in Apache web server for achieving that. I will be using a starter code for this video. You can find it in the video description below. Also there you will find the commands we use and relevant URLs. If you want to support the channel, please like the video or consider subscribing. We have a lot of videos on working with different cloud environments such as Google Cloud, AWS, and more videos are coming up. Thank you. We are going to take a look at the starter code. So I opened it in Visual Studio Code, and we have two directories in here, client and server. We are going to start with the server. It only has the one file, index.js. As I said, it's just a basic Express app. It has cores enabled. It runs on port 8000, and it will just return a random number with two decimals between 0 and 10. We can actually try it out. So in here, if we navigate to server, we do an npm install. And then if we do node and then index.js, we see the server has started. And if we go to localhost 8000, we see a random number. If we refresh the page, we get a new number every time. And now for the client, as I said, it's a single page app in React. So we can just start it and we can discuss it later. So I'll open a new terminal in here, navigate to client. We need to do an npm install. And then npm run start. So it's just this basic UI for our server. Every time we click this generate button, it makes AJAX request to the server and it fetches a new number. So in here, if we go to client source app.js, we will see that we have the button on click and then handle click. And for handle click, it's just doing a fetch to localhost 8000. And sets the state, the response in the field that then gets displayed as a paragraph. With that being said, we can continue by deploying our app to AWS. So we can stop these both the client and the server for now. I'm assuming you already have an AWS account and you have billing enabled and you are signed in. So this is the AWS console. And we need to navigate to the Lightsail product. I have it here, but you can just search it in a bar if you cannot find it. So it says Lightsail. Next, we can create an instance. So we can select a location. Yeah, Ohio is fine. Select a location that is good for your users and for yourself, has geographic proximity to where your users are. For the platform, we need to select Linux, Unix. And now the important part is that we need to select a blueprint. And the one that we need for this project is MERN. And this one stands for Mongo Node.js application. So it's Mongo, Express, Angular, and Node.js. It also has the Apache web server, and it has the ports enabled by default, HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, and also the tooling to generate Let's Encrypt certificates. The important part for us are the Node.js. We need it for both the server and for the npm package manager. We also need the Apache web server to configure the virtual host. And this looks good. So here, very important, if it's the first time you create a Lightsail instance, you will need to download your SSH key and store it somewhere safe. So you can only download SSH keys once. If you missed downloading the key or you forgot where you saved it, you can create a new one. So I'll do that just now. Let's call this one test AWS. So we can generate it, and yeah, it says you can only download this private key once. Make sure you download it and save it in a good location. Okay. Scrolling down. Here you can select more powerful hardware if you get more traffic. For this video, I'm just going to use the cheapest one. Here we have, we can provide a name. I'll just use the default, but you can pick a better name if you wish. And this looks good. We can just do create instance. And it will take a couple of minutes to deploy. This will change from pending once it's done. Our instance is now running. It says here the status. And this will be the static IP that is reserved for our instance, the one that we can add to our DNS later. And if we just check it in a new browser window, we can see that it was pre-populated with the documentation of the blueprint. So Bitnami is the creator of the blueprint we just used. And if we go to documentation, actually I think the get started is better. We have here instructions on how to deploy Node application, how to expose them to the internet. We will use this later. Next, we will transfer our project to Lightsail by using a FTP client. I'm using Filezilla, but if you use a different client, the instructions should be similar. So in here, I have Filezilla opened. And I will create a new site in here. Let's call it MERN1. And for the configuration, we will use the IP address. For the host, for the protocol, we need to use SFTP. And login type, we will use key file. The user will be Bitnami. This is the user that was created for the blueprint. And we need to select the key we just downloaded when we created the instance in Lightsail. And yeah, this looks good. We can just connect. And on the right side, we see the our home directory on the server, and on the left side is our local machine, and we can use it to copy files. We will start with the server, so we'll just create a new directory on the Lightsail side. Let's call this one server, and then we navigate on the left side, which is our local machine. We navigate to the path where we have the starter code. So in here, I think it's here. And inside server, we have to make sure we don't copy node modules because there are a lot of files and it will just take forever. And we can just install the dependencies once we SSH into the VM. So from here, we only need these 3 files. Upload. Okay. And next, we can just SSH into the Lightsail virtual machine. We can use this browser SSH client. You can also use it in the terminal. You will need to use in the SSH command, you will use the certificate we just downloaded. And yeah, we see that we are on our VM in here. And if we list the files, we see the server directory we just uploaded. We navigate to this directory to server, and we need to do an npm install to install the dependencies. And now we see that node modules was created on the server, so we didn't need to copy all these files. And next we will start the server and run it as a process. And actually for this step, the documentation of the blueprint comes handy. So in here it says demonize your application with Forever to keep it running. So there's this utility that we can use for keeping a node server running. And the way we use it is we have our application, in our case index.js, so we just started with this utility Forever start. And there are other subcommands we can use. There's start, stop, restart, restart all, and list. So we're going to try it on right now. So we can do Forever start and then index.js. And now if we do a Forever list, we see the processes that are managed by Forever. In our case, we have the index.js, and it has this index 0. So if we want to restart just that process, we can do Forever restart and then 0. Or if we want to restart all the processes, we need to do Forever restart all. We won't do this now, but keep in mind that if you make changes to the Node.js server, you need to restart it for the changes to be picked up. And now if we just do a curl, let's say HTTP localhost 8000, we will see the response from our server. It's a random number. And if we run it again, of course, we get new values. Now we will expose our server to the internet by using an Apache Virtualhost. So if we search on the Google for Apache Virtualhost and we open the documentation page, this example illustrates pretty well what they do. So in here we have one Apache server that is hosting two different domain names. So the first domain will be example.com, and this one will be served from this directory, from example1. And the second domain will be example.org. So notice the first one is .com, the second one is .org, and this one will be served from a different directory. In our case, we will have a virtual host for the React client and another virtual host for the Node.js server. If we look at the documentation of the blueprint, there will be instructions on how we can create a virtual host for our Node server. So our Node server doesn't have HTML files or PHP, but instead it is just serving all these things from a port in the VM, in the Lightsail VM, and then Apache will just proxy to that port for every incoming request. So we can start to create an Apache configuration file in Visual Studio Code for the server virtual host. So we're just going to call it vhost.conf, and in here we will use this one from here, and we also need to copy the proxy proxy pass and proxy pass reverse from the blueprint. So we don't need the document root. We need the server name. This is very important. And you will actually need a DNS domain for creating this virtual host. My domain is called vladsave.com. And the subdomain on which we will expose the server will be server.vladsave.com. It doesn't exist right now, but we will create it. And we also need to change the port in here. So port 8000, port 8000. This looks good. And now we can copy this file to our VM. So from here, this file, we will just copy it to vhosts, to the home directory in Lightsail. And in here, let's see if it copied. Yeah, we can see it there. So now we need to place this file in the Apache configuration directory. In here also there are instructions on where to copy it. So it will be an opt bitnami apache conf vhosts. So we're going to copy this one into opt apache. No, it's opt bitnami apache configuration and vhosts. So if we go to this directory, opt bitnami apache configuration. So the root configuration file of Apache is this one, http.conf. But if we look at the end of the file, http.conf, we will see that it includes all the .conf files inside vhosts. So if you're using a different Apache server that is not configured by Bitnami, it might not have this include, but you can create vhosts in this file in httpd.conf. And now that we copied our host, we can do Apache CTL config test. This is an utility tool to make sure our config syntax is correct. And we see that it says syntax OK. Now we need to restart the Apache server for the config changes to be applied. We'll go back to the documentation for our blueprint, and there's this command in here. It says restart Apache for the changes to take into effect. We're just going to run this one in SSH. Okay, it's all good. It says restarted Apache. And we can now list the virtual hosts that we have on our server with Apache CTL-S. And we can see in here that the virtual host we just added exists. It says server.vladsave.com. We can actually add the virtual host for the client as well right now. So in here, we will create a second virtual host. This one will be client, and this one doesn't need the proxies. It will just be served normally from Apache. We will build the React app into HTML and JavaScript files, and then it will just be served normally by Apache. Okay, this one looks good. We just need to re-upload it. Upload. Overwrite. And now if we go back to home, we can just copy the file again. Yeah, this command. So copy vhosts.conf to vhosts. Now we restart the server again. And if we list the vhosts again with Apache CTL-S, we see here that we have client.vladsave.com and also server.vladsave.com. And now what is left to do is to add our IP to our DNS domain as two subdomains. So you need to open your DNS registry. This one is the one that I'm using for my domain. It will look similar. The idea is that in the DNS domain we need to create a new record, and we need to add two records. So the first one will be called server, and we just need to fill in our IP address like this. Yeah, we see it there, and we need to create another one called client, and with the same IP address. Just checking that it was added. It should be good. Yeah, we can see it there. We can try out if the virtual hosts worked. So if we go to server.vladsave.com, we will see our Node.js server that just returns random numbers. And if we go to client.vladsave.com, we see the landing page from the blueprint just like before. So basically we are serving two websites from one Lightsail instance and one Apache server. So Apache server will go one way or another depending on the domain we are requesting. And also, we see here that our connection is not secure. We are using HTTP and not HTTPS. And that's what we are going to do next. After we do that, we will replace this page with our React app. If we go back to the getting started documentation, at the end, we see a link to create an HTTPS certificate for Apache. And yeah, we just need to run this bncert tool that will generate the free certificate for us. So in here, we can try it out. Yeah, it says that there's an updated version. So now we need to run it again with the new version. Okay, so the domain list for which we want to generate certificates, this one, it says a space separated list. So it will be client.vladsave.com and server.vladsave.com. Of course, this depends on the domain you have. It won't be vladsave.com in your case. It says the following domains were not included. Do you want to add them? No, we don't want to add them. Okay. We don't have the redirect. Do we want HTTP to HTTPS redirection? Sure, why not? We need to approve the changes that will be performed. Enter our email. If we agree with the agreement, sure. Yes. If we list our virtual hosts again with Apache CTL-S, we will see that our client and server are still on port 80, and actually we will need to reconfigure our virtual hosts to work with the SSL certificate we just generated. If we go back to the quick start documentation, there will be instructions here on how to make your virtual host use the SSL certificates. So we can just transfer these three lines with SSL engine, SSL certificate file, SSL certificate key. We will transfer them to our virtual hosts file. So in here, but we need to change the path for the CRT and the key files. So if we look in opt bitnami Apache conf in the configuration directory for Apache, we will see these two files in here. They will have different names for, in your case, they are related to the domain I used when generating the certificate. So we can just copy this file name and in here, so it will be in opt bitnami Apache conf, this one key, and that one is CRT, and this one is dot key, and we copy these this section also to the server virtual host like that. And now we just need to re-upload this vhost file using Filezilla. Oh, actually, one more thing. We need to change the port from 80 to 443, which is the SSL port. Like that, save the file. So now we can copy it again. Okay, overwrite. So now if we look at, let's make sure it copied correctly. Yeah, we can see both the port change and the key file and the SSL certificate. So now we can copy it again to, let's see. Yeah, copy it to the Apache configuration vhosts directory. Now we can do a Apache CTL config test just to make sure it's valid. It is valid. And we can restart the Apache server again and also list the virtual hosts with Apache CTL-S. So now we see that our virtual hosts are on port 443, which is what we want. And we can try again the server and client domains. So if we refresh this page, we will see that now is HTTPS. We see this lock in here. It says connection is secure. We can even dig into the certificate. It says let's encrypt. So yeah, this is a good certificate. And let's try the client as well. So client.vladsave.com. Again, we see that the connection is secure. And lastly, we can transfer the React app and replace our client with the React. So in here, in Visual Studio Code, now we need to change the URL that we use in the request in app.js. So this is in client source app.js. So in here, in this fetch, we no longer fetch localhost, but we fetch server.vladsave.com like that. And now we can copy the client as well. So in the Lightsail side, we right click and do a create a new directory. We are going to call it client. And in here, again, we copy public source package lock and package.json. We don't copy node modules because, again, there are a lot of files and we can install it once we are on the server. Okay, so now if we go back to our SSH, in here, if we go to client, and we can do an npm install. That will install all the node modules dependencies. The dependencies were installed. If we list, we can see the node modules directory. And now we will just build our React app into an HTML and JavaScript and CSS package. And we will use the npm run build target. Okay, and this created this directory build, And if we look inside it, we will see that it just has an index HTML, it has CSS, JavaScript files, and this one we can just copy into the Apache root directory. So we will do a copy recursive from build / star, so all the files and subdirectories. We will copy them to home directory, so ~/htdocs. Okay, and now if we refresh our client, we see the UI for our app, and we can try generating some numbers. We see that it calls the server correctly. We can even do an inspect. And if we go to network tab, we see that it called server https server.vladsafe.com, which is what we expected. This is all the material we have for today. There are many more videos on cloud development on this channel. Some of them will show up on the screen. If you have questions or you run into issues, feel free to post in the comment section below, and I will try to help you out. Thank you for watching.